Number one international best-selling author? Are you kidding me? Is this me? Is this real? Hey, I'm Chris Schwegel. I'm the founder and CEO of Chris Connects. We're a real estate syndication company, and we hook you up with passive income investing opportunities. And I've got to say, today is a little different. Most of the time I come on here and try to help people out with investing or life or balance or mental health or sometimes training a dog. Today's a little different. I woke up this morning and found out that the book that I had the distinct honor of co-authoring hit several number one bestseller categories, including a few other countries. So that means it's international. I mean, that's crazy. That is crazy to me. I don't know. I guess if I can do it, you can do it. And I know a bunch of people out there who want to write a book or write a chapter of a book. I wrote just one chapter of a book. It's called Next Level Your Life. And I'll just kind of tell you a little bit about the story, a little bit about what I learned about myself and about writing along the way. And what I hope that this chapter does, what I hope that this chapter in this book becomes for me, for my company, for you guys, for the world. First of all, my story is called, I forget the name of the chapter. I think it's How a Terminal Illness Uncovered My Superpowers, something like that. I don't know. It's very catchy, though. Clearly very catchy, right? Because I, the author, can almost remember it. So it must be particularly awesome. I'm sure you'll highlight that right away when you buy the book, which you can get on Amazon, by the way. I found out, here's one thing, tidbit, sorry, I'm already getting astray, but I found out that Amazon sells more books and ebooks than all other booksellers combined. Isn't that crazy? So if you're number one on Amazon, you're basically like king of the beasts, which is kind of cool. And I never realized that. I always thought it was the New York Times, but they don't sell very many books anymore. But anyway, let's get back to it. So my story in my chapter is a bit different than the other chapters in the book. I'm a little bit of a different dude a lot of times, and I kind of go my own way. Also, I'm old. I'm 42. I don't have any hair, and so I'm kind of unapologetic about where I'm at, and that came with some time and came with some struggle, and I detail that a little bit in the book. So the chapter kind of covers from when I'm 34, 35 years old, maybe until now, little bits and pieces. So there was a particular time in my life when it seemed like nothing really was going well. There was a lot of tragedies and happiness, just a lot of emotion happening all at once. And so the chapter starts with, a look at, I've got a newborn daughter. She's a few months old, Luella. She's 7 now, but at the time she was newborn. My wife was having terrible, awful postpartum depression. I have no idea what it's like to experience that, and I'm so grateful that I don't have to experience that ever. And I know that affects a lot of people. And one thing I hope is that people can start to talk about experiencing postpartum depression while it's happening instead of, afterwards. But anyway, so at that time, Kelly was not doing well with her mental health. And then also at that time, I was diagnosed with chronic kidney disease. So this is something that, I should probably be in dialysis here any day. And it should probably be killing me here in the next, 5 or 10 years. So very grim part of my life. And before then, I'd been pretty laid back, a very type B kind of laid back guy. I never really worried about too much. I like to party quite a lot. I like to hang out, I like to watch football. I like to skateboard and snowboard. I was on the lake a lot, just kind of hanging out, having fun, really not having a whole lot of ambition or responsibility. And so the rest of the chapter covers just how basically that dude that I was from birth until 34, 35, that Chris just wasn't going to cut it. And so it mixes with the next level of your life theme pretty well, because I just kind of had to become a different guy. The dude I became for the next few years is someone that my counselor calls Hammer Chris. Hammer Chris just hammers shit, gets stuff done, doesn't really care about other people, doesn't really care about, empathy or being gentle or tender, just gets the job done. And I think that person has gone away. And I'm trying to be more of a fluid Chris right now, someone who can adapt and be flexible to stuff. Can be any number of Chris's here. And so the book my chapter of the book details just, kind of that transformation into where we're at now, which is pretty awesome. And so the process of writing the book was way different than I thought it was going to be. I met Kyle Wilson. He's a renowned and prolific publisher at a convention in Dallas, Texas, of all places, in March of 2022. And I just sat next to him. I didn't really know who he was at the time. Sorry about that, Kyle. I very much know who he is now, and he's a big part of my life. He's an awesome dude. Awesome dude. Thank you. Thank you to Kyle Wilson. And while we're on it, thank you to Takara Sites, our editor and coach, for being awesome and positive and encouraging, helping me figure out my voice here. So thank you to you guys. But anyway, back to the story of meeting Kyle. We're at lunch at this convention, and I sat next to him. Like I said, I didn't really know who he was at the time. He didn't know who I was. And he said, "Oh, you're a social worker? You're a social worker turned real estate investor? But why?" And I started to explain to him how, you get into social work because you want to help people. And then eventually you still want to help people, but you want to help yourself a little bit. You want to go on vacations. You want to have a family. You want to own a home. You don't want to rent, a den in the basement of your friend's house. You want to have some fun. You want to start to build something that's real and has some sort of legacy to it. And he really liked that and thought it fit in. And so he invited me to be in the book. And it sounded great. It sounded awesome. I'll write my story, and it'll help my company, and it'll help me out. It'll help my career and all this kind of stuff. And lo and behold, my first draft just got ripped up to shreds. It essentially got completely thrown out. It was the same concept of the story that ended up being published. It was just way different. Takara wouldn't say this, and Kyle wouldn't say this, so I'll go out and say it. It was a whiny piece of crap. There was a lot of self-pity in there. There was a lot of whining and complaining. There sure wasn't a lot of optimism. It was basically a series of a few years of therapy just written down onto paper and spewed as if someone wanted to read that at all. It was gross. But one thing we talked about was how, Stephen King writes books, which is, he writes the first edit, apparently. I don't know if this is true or not, but this is the story. He writes the first edit and then just puts it in his drawer, and no one ever gets to read it. And apparently his second edit, only his wife gets to read. And finally on his third edit, does he send it to a group of people to look over and start editing. And so I guess if a guy like Stephen King has a similar process to me, I guess that's okay. And to be honest, even talking about this out loud, I'm getting kind of hot here, like kind of heated a bit, a little bit sweaty, because man, it's kind of embarrassing what I put down on paper in that first draft. And so if you want to be an author, if you want to write or get your stuff out there, please do it. You absolutely can. And just know that the first thing you're going to write down is going to be crap, and just throw it away. And it's fine, because it's just cathartic. It's just getting it out. Now, when my second draft was written, it was starting to get a little bit better. And it was starting to get to a point where people can actually relate to or would enjoy reading. And then as the third and fourth edit went on, I started to realize more of my story is really powerful for people. And my story is universal in the way that we all go through struggles. We all have tragedies happen. They seem to come in bunches. And what you do with that, whether you wither away or whether you grow from it, seems to be something that everybody wrestles with and everybody is faced with in their life. And so I just, I guess, found it to be rather cathartic. And what am I trying to say here? Kind of a blessing, or maybe some forgiveness to myself when I finally got the draft done. And of course, reading it now, there's changes I want to make. And I've heard from other people who have written entire books that they feel the same way. You just have to eventually stop writing and then just hit publish and go for it. So I encourage you to try. I encourage you to write your story. I encourage you to get out there and go through the process of figuring out a little bit more about yourself and what you're made of. I know for me, my story is about overcoming obstacles, but I overcame a lot more obstacles that were hidden to me when I was writing the book. What came up here is a lot of fear that I had about putting myself out there, being different. A lot of fear I had about, talking to people, like becoming a brand, being a salesperson. The concept that I would have the audacity of helping somebody with my story is something I'm still wrestling with and still grappling with. And I don't know if that'll ever feel comfortable to me or not, but it certainly is something that I'm willing to try. And I think what I've realized from writing this chapter is that I'm willing to try a lot more things than I used to. Before, I would try daring things like going really fast on my skateboard, or going really fast down a mountain on my snowboard, or, going on international trips by myself or something like that. Things that people find are daring, but to me weren't. But what was really risky to me back then was being on social media, doing a live stream. Writing a book was out of the question. Writing a chapter out of the question, especially a chapter about my life. Whew. And so I got to get over a lot of fear, and I'm continuing to get over a lot of fear that I have within myself through writing this book. And I think a lot of people have similar fears. When I was growing up, I was a small kid. I was shrimpy. I was very late to hit puberty. I think it was like 10th grade was the first grade where I wasn't the smallest person, boy or girl, like in my class. And so I've just always been a little different. And I think everyone feels like they're a little bit different in some way. And it hangs with you. I mean, I'm 42 years old now. I still have some fears about when I was 10, when I was 12, 14. I mean, talking to a girl. I mean, trying something new. Trying to start a business or asking the neighbors if I can mow their lawn. All that stuff still kind of makes me a bit sweaty talking about it now. And I'm a grown man. I have my own family and my own daughter to worry about and take care of, I own several businesses, and it still makes me nervous to tell people about businesses. So one thing I'm hoping that this chapter does for people is to inspire them to get over your fears, or not even get over them. That wasn't the right word. To try to get over your fears, to try to go right through them instead of around them. One thing I learned from my story and from this book is that I'm a much better person, a much more rounded of a person, much more balanced than I ever was before because of the crap I went through. And I'm a much better investor than I was before, a way better husband, a much better father than I ever was. I think a friend, I think just a citizen in the world. I think I'm much better now than I was before because I went through some crap, because stuff became really real for me at quite a lot of points there. There were several years there where I didn't know how long I was going to live. I was worried about Kelly's health. I obviously worried about Llewellyn, my daughter, growing up when she was an infant and a toddler. This is a lot of stuff that people struggle with on a day-to-day basis. So what I'm trying to say is, I hope that this chapter inspires some hope in people to overcome fears, to at least try to go right through them, to try to get through them and learn from your failures, learn from your successes, and learn from your fears. Because there's a lot there. there was a lot there for me, and I imagine there's a lot there for other people. Also, what I learned from this process is that there's a lot that goes into writing a book. There is a lot that goes into writing a book. I think my chapter is like 8 pages or something, right? It's not a lot. So I can't imagine how much goes into writing an entire book, let alone publishing it, let alone trying to distribute it and, print it and all that kind of stuff. So if my recommendation, if you're thinking about writing a book, is to find a publisher, is to find someone who can do that for you. Because otherwise, those are 4 or 5 separate full-time jobs that you're trying to figure out. So for sure, do that. And lastly, what I hope that this does for my career and for people is kind of one and the same. I hope that this chapter shows that I'm a real person, that I'm transparent, that I'm willing to put my family first, that I'm willing to overcome obstacles and talk about tragedy, to talk about the ups and the downs, and to celebrate success in a way that you only know when you didn't think you were ever going to get it. To be humble enough to know that, things all could fall apart pretty quickly. Sure does help you celebrate that success when things go well. So I'm hoping that I become a real person to people. And I hope that when people read this, that my story connects with them. I hope that it inspires them to live a better life, to have more hope. And I hope that it inspires people to get into real estate investing. I know that sounds silly when we're talking about big, real tragedies and, generational traumas and things like that, to talk about real estate investing. But I'm here to tell you that having passive income, holy cow, has benefited my family, has benefited me, my daughter, my wife, the things that we get to do, the things that we get to not worry about because we have some passive income coming in. And what's great about real estate investing is it doesn't take a whole lot. You can use leverage to, really boost your returns like you can't in other asset classes. Pretty remarkable. So I hope that this inspires people to get into real estate investing because if a poor social worker who is diagnosed with kidney disease can do it, I hope other people can do it too. And lastly, if people don't want to go through it, I hope that maybe I become a real person and maybe people will want to, look to me for investments or look to me for, the course that I'm coming out with on my first rental property to help people and teach people to get into the game of house hacking and buying rental properties and things like that if you want to be an active investor. So I hope that this just helps connect me with other people and helps connect me to, especially, social workers, psychologists, nurses, doctors, firefighters, paramedics. My mission in life is to help 1 million people increase their financial health. And I've got a soft spot in my heart for anyone who's doing case notes out there, wishing that they had a little bit of passive income, wishing that they had a little bit more time to spend with family or go on vacation or go sledding out in the snow. So in conclusion here, boy, I just thought about Mrs. Planky, my 10th grade speech teacher, who told us never say in conclusion. So in honor of John Fleming, who got a D in that class, for my conclusion, I will say this process has been incredibly rewarding for me. And I sure hope that people enjoy reading it. I hope people enjoy reading the other chapters. And I really hope this inspires people to want to next level their life with investing, with work-life balance, with relationships, whatever that might be. So until next time, my name is Chris Schweigel. I'm the CEO and founder of Chris Connects Real Estate Syndication Company. Take care.